So I'm listening to Red Eye Radio in this video blog, which I just muted, and I'm at H Mart. I call it the Holy Mart. The H is for holy. So it's a Korean grocery store, which I go to quite often, actually, out here and then in Chicago. And then there's another location I've been to. There's 3 locations around here, and there's lots of Koreans, and I spent decades hanging out with Koreans, going to Korean churches and playing softball with them and many other things and small groups. So I spent decades and decades with Koreans in particular. So anyways, I go to a Korean grocery store. So I used to know Koreans from coast to coast. And one of my best friends at college at the University of Arizona was Matt Kang, K-A-N-G. And the funny thing is, I used to have three of my best friends here in Chicago were Jimmy, Michael, and David Kang, 3 brothers. But the Korean I hung out with at the University of Arizona, Matt Kang, we used to call him the world's largest Korean, which is untrue. But he was a well put together kid. He stayed in shape and took care of himself, and I used to go see him every year when I was with Hancock. When I went to New York, I would go hang out with him all the time. And then my other friend, Steve, he's Korean, and he was in New York. So I see Matt and Steve, and then I introduced Matt and Steve to each other. They didn't know each other, and all 3 of us hung out together. Me and the 2 Korean guys. But what I'm showing down here is the industrial park. And this is on Saunders Road, and they just completed the last segment of it. So, and there's a Japanese pharmaceutical firm called Estella right over here. And this could be a distribution center for their pharmaceutical reps. Truly. So, again, it can be a warehousing and distribution center. Not only is it a logistical center for moving, goods in and out, but it can be a distribution center. So it can hold or store inventory and then be distributed out from there. So it can work in many different ways. And so I don't know what they're thinking of, how they're going to fill it, but it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be total logistical center. Here's the pharmaceutical firms, and Amgen is right on Lake Cook Road, which is not far from here either. And I'll pull into here. This is where my ex, Jennifer Kim, is at, the Estella. It's a Japanese pharmaceutical firm. And obviously, they have a lot of seniors. So, again, they have a growing need in Japan and China, which has fast-growing senior populations. So anyways, you have these 3 pharmaceutical. You have Medline, Estella, and CF, which I don't know, which is right by this logistical park. So again, it can be used in a lot of different ways, but again, it could be a strategic distribution point for them, where they even turning those into manufacturing. Like I worked in Buffalo Grove, which is not too far from here, and I worked for a medical device company, and it manufactured medical device. And that's funny because, not funny, but they're the first firm that did biometric recognition. So all the employees going in and out, you had the camera on you and you had to do biometric recognition. It was to protect the facility. So everybody coming in and out, you put your hand on a biometric recognition, your full hand, all 5 fingers, your palm, and it read it all, and it did biometric recognition with the camera. And so they have facial with the biometric, pairing them up, facial recognition with biometric, meaning facial biometrics with reading your fingerprints. And everybody checking in and out. That's how you punched in. The system automatically punched you in. You were logged in when you scanned your hand, and you automatically were punched in. Now, when you start at work, could be a little bit later, you can scan in early, and it won't start it until your start time is supposed to. So we got there a little bit early. We sit around in the lunchroom, and it would clock us in at our start time. And then when we left, it would clock us out. So it knew when we entered the facility and when we left the facility. Here, I'll go straight, since it's open, and go into down this street. And it doesn't say it's closed to traffic. So I'll just take a little venture down here. Maybe that's a security car. I have no idea. But again, they have this logistical park. And I've never been back here. So it looks like they built out the roadways and everything. You can see it to the right and left, the buildings. There you go. And so again, this can be used for so many different things. This used to be the Allstate campus. And I would assume Allstate still owns the land. And part of the thing is that when you lease the land, they could have made it where you had to get the insurance through Allstate. And you're signing the lease agreement and you agree to purchase your insurance through Allstate. Now, the thing is, Allstate, not to get sued, they have to do a self-benchmarking, making sure that they're giving you a competitive rate. Because if they don't, then they can, basically, it's a form of extortion. And so they would have to self-benchmark against other competitors, making sure they're giving you a competitive rate. But they could have set it up that you move in here, and any of the industries that move in here has to use Allstate for their commercial insurance. So they could have done this. This is Premier Design and Construction Group. Here, I'll show you on the video. But there's the rest of the campus. As you can see, it's still, some of it's still getting built. But here's the sign right here. So this is Illinois moving forward. As I said, this state could be a $5 to $6 trillion a year state. And I'm listening to Red Eye Radio, and the CBOE, the Chicago Board of Options Exchange, the CBOT, Chicago Board of Trade, and the Mercantile Exchange, they're opening up an exchange in Texas. a Southern Exchange, stock exchange, securities exchange, and it's supposed to, be awesome. And it's part of it is they're setting it up from Chicago, and it's an expansion of Chicago operations down south. So Chicago financial exchanges are expanding into Texas. And it's supposed to be, a pretty, they project the exchange volume will be significant. And it'll bring lots of jobs to Texas. So Illinois bringing from its technology, bringing an immense amount of jobs to Texas related to the securities industries. So, again, they can do a lot with this. And there's Wheeling Industrial Park, and there's Elmhurst Industrial Park that's not too far away. And you have these three, Medline, again, Estella, and CF. And then on Lake Cook, which is a few, major streets north, is Amgen. And so you have 4 large pharmaceutical companies that could create operations in these buildings. Truly, it doesn't need to be logistics. It can be manufacturing, and in particular, pharmaceutical manufacturing. And what type? Maybe it just makes pharmaceutical machines, because there's a whole evolution in making supplements and prescription drugs using robotic manufacturing. And these facilities could build that infrastructure, or be that infrastructure, or be both building the infrastructure and being the infrastructure for these 4 pharmaceuticals companies. So these buildings are huge areas inside, and so they can be more than just storage, as I'm saying. And they can be distribution centers, even for, there's a FedEx distribution right across the street, but also UPS can come in here. US Mail can have distribution in here. US Mail can make this a distribution hub. UPS can make this a distribution hub. There's FedEx here. There's RL here. So there's all these freight carriers, and that's what Red Eye Radio taps into. It's a show that taps into the logistical people. And logistical is taxi cab drivers, DoorDash drivers, not only truck drivers. They're UPS and FedEx and many other people who move logistics, whether it's people or goods. And mail is a good. So using the mail is a service, but it moves physical goods. So a letter is a good. So anyways, it's a logistical service. So they can have all of them in there, and it ties into O'Hare Airport with offloading and unloading all kinds of package services. O'Hare Airport has one of the biggest cargo airports in the United States. Rockford is number 13, but O'Hare has much more cargo. And we have Midway, and there's lots of cargo that comes into Midway as well, but that's 737s. But they still carry lots of cargo. That's what made JetBlue profitable, and that's what made Alaskan Airlines profitable. It was the cargo they were hauling besides passengers. So, again, then that ties into the freight lines and the rail lines So it's all part of a network. It's just how much of the logistics you're doing. The reason you use semis in particular, you want to use them in a way that's more strategic, where you have, like Walmart uses them. They drop off at stores and they pick up at stores. So they're offloading, but they're also getting any returns or any items that are moving from one Walmart to another Walmart store. So any merchandise that's going back to the manufacturer, or if they're donating it to charity or whatever it may be, or any recycling material from that Walmart. Oh yes, semis can be used in a Target, Walmart, Amazon, picking up all types of recycling material. So at the Walmart, as they offload, they would pick up bundles of boxes and bundles of plastic and other that would be packaged at that Walmart and then be put onto the semi. As they offload goods, they would load back on all the recycling material. And what happens to the semi drivers? The reason they don't get paid much in comparison is because they drive with the trailer empty. But every time as they're emptying the trailer is being filled back up. The driver is carrying multiple loads, and the driver makes more per trip. They make going there, and then they have whole loads coming back, and you can literally double a truck driver's salary. What the fuck? Motherfucker almost hits me and then gets off. I truly can't wait till God burns people. And you think you would understand today with Thomas Aquinas and Martin Luther what I put out there. And I told you, most everybody just goes to fucking hell. And you've been lied to forever. Do you know that? Priests and pastors, they're all burning in hell, and nuns have been lying to you. Just to let you know, your clergy haven't been telling you the truth. They've been burning too. And I put it out there, if you read my Tumblr, it's all absolutely true. The Vatican and Pope Francis truly finally took a hard line, but it took all the way to him, and I liked him, and I was kind of ticked when he stepped down for the new Pope, which now they replaced with another. But the Latin American Pope, I did not like him. He was in Latin America, and he was allowing the narco traffickers to use the church for sanctification, allowing them to strip themselves of their guilt as they went on and slaughtered people all through Latin America. And that was the Pope who was before Pope Leo, the new Pope. And I did not like him. And he was big anti-America. Truly, the first things when he got in office, he started bashing on America automatically. But that shit is unacceptable. So, I don't get where people get the fucking balls. And I keep on showing you biblically, as Thomas Aquinas and Martin Luther couldn't believe the balls on people. because the church keeps on empowering them instead of informing them what's truly going to happen to them. So all these people going around think, and even all the clergy think, they're going to heaven. No. And all these people, oh, I'll meet my parents in heaven. No. But you can keep on thinking that. It's a wonderful thought, but it's untrue. And so this is why we have such a horrible world. Because they sold lies forever, and they didn't tell people the truth. And God had to keep on killing people. Read the Old Testament and everything. In Jesus' days, they killed him and the disciples, and they couldn't stand the truth. Then what did they do? And the point of Jesus going out and telling the truth. But what happened to Martin Luther? They literally, the clergy tried to kill him. The German princes, the German royal family protected him. That's why the Lutheran religion started in Germany, in honor of Martin Luther. But the whole point is, they were trying to kill him, the church was, because he was telling the truth. And Thomas Aquinas, he did it in a much low key. Martin Luther was very public. Thomas Aquinas was, wrote his papers and was very silent. So he just distributed them through the church. He wasn't an outspoken person. Martin Luther was take it to the streets, take it to the people, and tell them the truth, whether they like it or not. And so he did. And what did they do? They tried to kill him. And so the German royal family protected him from the church trying to kill him. All these clergy and people with the church conspired to try to kill him. And so the royal family drew a hard line, and anyone that conspiratized against, they would put to death instantly. So they took the threat serious. But they didn't like it. They were stealing, lying, cheating pieces of scumbags, filling their own coffers, like you saw with the movie about the last emperor of China. And then what happened with the emperor of Japan? He was just a young boy. And what did the Japanese do? The same thing they did to the last emperor of China. It happened to him, but they haven't done the movie telling the story. But it's the same thing. They were all filling their coffers, pulling the wool over his eyes, and it was a bunch of bullshit. They were all creating mutiny. And so they literally enslaved the Emperor of Japan, truly. And finally, after the atomic bombs dropped, he stood up against the military and called for an end. But they sold him out, and they sold the Japanese people out. And they went against the Emperor of Japan, literally giving him bad counsel. So you see these last two emperors, one of China and one of Japan, that were destroyed. by their Pharisees, just as Jesus was, just as Martin Luther. All these filthy, dirty scumbags. But truly, and the German royal family were good people. And Hitler destroyed that country. Truly, that's what I am, Lutheran, and I'm German. And that's a significant part of my history. I'm Scandinavian, but still. And it disgusts me that happened. And these evil people conspire to do things like that car had no reason to threaten my life. So I don't get it. But there are good places with good people, and they take extreme measures to protect what matters. And so you can live life and have a great life. But sometimes you cross the path of the wrong person and it's instant death. It's like going out and you go out into the woods. And if you cross the path of the wrong creature, well, it could be instant death. So we're talking real world situations where you go out, whether it's India or anywhere else, and you go out into the jungle and you run across that tiger. Well, that could be the end of you. It's the same thing in this world. You cross the wrong person and you die instantly. We need to get a real world feel again for here, where there are real ramifications, and depending on who you cross, it could be the death of you. So I'm for reinstalling the death penalty here. I've always been pro-death penalty. So some people just don't have the right to live anymore. There needs to be a cutoff, not this unlimited revolving door that you cross a certain line and that's it. You don't exist anymore. So there needs to be teeth. And I'm all for saving people, but some people can't be saved. But that's totally off of what I was talking about with the logistical park. And again, it can be integrated and good things can happen, but not with bad people in existence. Look at what Hitler did to Germany. I mean, look at all these countries and their bad leadership and their corrupt congresses and everything else. And those countries and those people suffer greatly. And they allow all these criminals, like we have, the Italian mafia and many others, to thrive in the United States. It's just like going on the highway. We allow these pieces of filth to thrive on the highway in their satanic driving. And we say, oh, well, you know, it's good for the insurance. Well, if you look at, what did I pull up, 1.7 million people the other day? let's see, there's in the highway system, 1.7 million animal strikes a year. And then from that, I forgot the damage total, and then I forgot how many people die. But one thing, 1.7 million animals get killed per year. 1.7 million by getting hit by a fucking car or a truck. Almost 2 million a year. And we talk about endangered species. I was at the junction, which I just passed, and the whole highway was waiting for a mother and a father. It was 2 adult ducks bringing their chicklings, and it shouldn't have happened, but they were crossing, and it was a rainy day, and everybody on the highway during rush hour was waiting for them to cross the highway. And this is where you're only as strong as your weakest link. Some motherfucker, you got hundreds and thousands of people waiting patiently, and truly, it was jam-packed, and there's hundreds, and behind it several thousand cars waiting, and some motherfucker cuts out and goes into the emergency lane and flies down the emergency lane and clips the last 2 chicklings, killing them. And I'm sitting in line, I'm like, holy shit. Everybody here sitting patient, and then you get the weakest link fucking everything up. And I couldn't be the only person thinking that. Like, you're sitting there, and I was towards the front, and I'm sitting there patiently waiting for them to get to safety, and they were moving across the highway. They weren't stopped. They were just moving across. It just takes them a little bit. The chicklings can't move fast. And then here comes this piece of fucking garbage and kills the last couple. I'm like, what the fuck? I hate pieces of shit. Here is everybody doing the right thing, and all their good work went to waste. Everything, not only me, but everybody around me doing the right thing, all their good work goes right down the fucking tubes. One person can throw it all right down the fucking tubes. It makes me sickening. You learned that from Judas. One person throwing everybody's good work right down the tubes. One. Killing the other 12, or 11, I should say. One lived all the way, natural death. But the other 11, starting with Jesus, died in not good form. But the dominoes fell after the one traitor. So again, I see these good things and all these good intentions, and it can get all washed out by these evil people. All your life's work. Like my brother-in-law. We go on vacation to Florida during the end of July, where it's 100 degrees, 100% humidity, and we drive down, not fly, too expensive, and we stay at Singer Island, which was his father's house that saved us money. So we did it very much on the cheap. But we go down there, he's down for a few weeks, and his corporation, when he leaves his company, perfectly healthy. He comes back 2 weeks later, and his company is on the verge of bankruptcy. And then he had to fire his accountant and several other people. Well, he was away they fucked off for 2 weeks. So God watches what people do with the doors closed. So when that person's gone, do they F off? I used to tell my staff that as the same thing. If I'm out of the room and I come back in and catch you and you're just loafing off, well, I got to write you up, send you home, or terminate you. Because when I'm not here, I expect you to be working just as diligently. Not, oh, the boss is gone, now let's go. Like I was watching The Rookie. And I like all the girls on that TV show. They're really cute. But the guys, and it's a good show, they got good male actors. And The Rookie, he's a good male actor. And so he has this one person do this job, and he's looking at the camera, and he's like, why isn't he moving? Wow, he's been standing still for a while. And she goes, I guarantee you he took a picture and put a picture in front of the camera. He gets back, and there is he with his sunglasses on, feet kicked up, and the picture's in front of the camera. And he gets pissed. Slacking. Sloth is a deadly sin. Work isn't when the boss is away, you go F off. And all these people say, well, I'm not making enough money. And I used to say this to my staff. Well, let me take a review of your productivity. And no, I didn't measure bathroom time because you had to get permission to go to the bathroom. Truly, in the service industry, you can't be off the floor. You got tables, you got people waiting for drinks behind the bar. If you're the bartender or bar back, you got to. So if you're going to the bathroom, you have to notify and get permission. That way, I could step in, or I could move another bar back over, another bartender over, or another server or cocktail over to cover your area while you go to the bathroom. You can't just go to the bathroom. That's why you have to notify, and people need to be moved around. But what did I find out with work? It was like playing football. When people are working, they're burning off the resources, and so they're not really going to the bathroom that much. Going to the bathroom was very rare. So when I was working, bartending and that, leaving the bar, it literally never happened. Because I was busy and moving around, and I didn't have to. Even with drinking everything, you sweat, you respirate when you're moving more. And so going to the bathroom, I worked 18-hour shifts and I wouldn't go to the bathroom. Because I was working. And I found out that people that tend to go to the bathroom frequently, that were in my industry, were the lazy ones. They weren't moving around. They were being lazy, out of sight. But when they were out of sight and they were having to make these bathroom trips, I knew they weren't working. Ask any football player. How many times during a football game, truly, we had halftime, and rarely did I ever have to go to the bathroom at halftime. Rarely ever. I can only remember once. Because you're constantly moving, and everything you take in, you're burning off. It's just fuel. There's very little waste. So usually when people are busy and they're highly active, you're not going to the bathroom too much. So I didn't need to go to the bathroom because I was active and productive. So it does depend on the job. Truly, it does depend on the job. If you're in a really sedentary job, like you work the door, you're a doorman, and you don't get up and do rounds or anything, and you just sit there and you drink liquid, well, your metabolism is extremely slow, so the majority of it is going to end up in your bladder, and you're going to have to go to the bathroom. So that's what happens to people that sit on their butt. So you have to just slow down your consumption. You don't need to drink as much. And if you pay attention, and, Red Eye Radio put it out there, how much, water you need per hour just to stay hydrated, you really wouldn't have to go to the bathroom that much. And it's good because you're washing the salt out of your body and everything. So it's not like it's good for the bladder. It truly isn't. You're overtaxing it. So if they told you, take this and that, drink, half a bottle of water every hour or something like that. Depending, like speakers, they respirate a lot from talking. So you lose a lot of moisture into the air by talking, like I am. So you need more fluid. But again, if you understand that, most people aren't constantly talking on the truck. They're more listening. So I'm down here in Fulton Market. And the new Google, they're going to bring a couple thousand more employees down. They have here tons of employees in this area. Thousands of employees, Google employees in this area. And then they're going to bring down another couple thousand. So the workforce in the city of Chicago is going to go up to about 4,000 people. And yeah, we have Nancy's Pizza over here, and I like Nancy's stuffed pizza. Chicago is very famous. Gino's East, Nancy's, very famous for stuffed pizza. And then Giordano's and some others are famous for pan pizza. And then Chicago style thin crust is not New York style. It's thicker. Chicago style thin crust is a little bit thicker. And then pan pizza has a lot more crust to it. And then we go the opposite, where we have stuffed pizza, where you get lots of cheese. And then we have Eli's Cheesecake Factory, which, again, lots of cheese. So we need lots of dairy. And we use lots of grains for those industries. So, picture of Lincoln up here, which you can't see because of the camera. But there's a picture of Lincoln over there. There you go. You can see it right here. Right there. There's that picture of Lincoln. Anyways, let me blur this down. But this is the land of Lincoln. Honest Abe. Honest Abraham Lincoln. We had George Washington, who could not tell a lie. Truly. And who he spoke to. So it's not like George Washington told everybody everything. he picked and chose, but he never lied. So that's where you say that's above your pay grade. They understand that that's above your security clearance. Can't answer that question. So you don't lie to them. Like you work with, we have Boeing over here. And let's see if I can get it. Behind that light, it says Boeing. But again, you work in the industry and you tell your spouse there's certain things you can't talk about. And so, that's just company proprietary stuff. So you can have a spouse and you can do your own thing. They do this all the time. And you have relationships where you can't share company information. But again, you can talk generally. I'm having a good day. I'm having a bad day. Somebody was being a jerk to me at work. Or I had a bad experience with a customer. Or my boss is, I don't think he's treating me correctly. They don't need to know the details of what you're doing. You can still give them information like, I thought it was inappropriate. We have a project and, I put in the proposal and I thought my proposal won and he passed me over for somebody else and so on. So you can talk in generalities. That's just general business conversation. So you don't have to give details. But again, they just understand how your day's going. Like on the market, if you're trading and you're working for clients, lawyers have to do that all the time. Do you know that? They can't disclose the case information to their wife or their husband. And so they go home and the judge is a jerk and, things aren't going well on the case. They don't go and tell them the details of things. Well, I put this, blank, 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 blank. The minutia, they just give them the high-level stuff. They don't even tell them the client's name, the customer's name. Yeah, I'm in for patent infringement. And, I got to sign this case, and we're doing a patent infringement case, and so on. And here's the thing in front of me for the selfies on the iPhone 17 Pro, showing how good the selfies is with all these girls, which reminds me how much I need a girlfriend. But you can have conversations in that and have a life, even if you work in the most top secret. You just keep it general. But most of the time, you just talk about your hobbies and other things, like the kids, the house, where you're going to travel, what you're reading. Truly, like for leisure, where we're going to go skiing and so on, or whatever it may be. Most of the conversation is non-work related. Like Jen loved to talk about wine and many other things. The books she was reading, the last book was something geisha, I forget. How to Be a Geisha or whatever it was. But again, we could talk about all of this stuff, not particularly work. So you can have a perfect marriage in industries that you can't sell details, so you don't have to just marry somebody from your own company. And you can work together perfectly. And if you have, like Jen, I encouraged her, she got a biometric computer. Yes, she bought a computer from Hewlett-Packard in 2000, I don't know if it's 3 or something, but they came out with the first biometric computer that you can't open the computer without fingerprints. So she bought a biometric computer. What did that do? It just made things further protected from me. I encouraged all that. That way I can't open it, and there's no question that, I'm trying to, go through your stuff. I take things out of worry. I talked about asset protection and everything else. Not that I ever do, but the whole thing is I double down on making sure there's no questions in my relationship. I want a perfect relationship. I want her to absolutely trust me. I don't want her to have any worries about me. Truly. So from money to everything else, I told her how she could protect all of her stuff. And it was the truth, how it was set up and everything else. Like on the back of her credit cards, it said request ID. That way I couldn't take a credit card and use it, because they turn it over and it says request ID. And the merchants did. One time she gave it to me at Old Orchard and I went to pay for something. She gave it to me to pick up something. And I went over to the store and I went to pay for it. And the merchant turned it on the back and he looked and it said request ID. And he said, "Are you Jennifer Kim?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Well, I need an ID. I can't do this." I'm like, "Okay," but I could have said it, but still, I need an ID. And so to prevent somebody stealing her credit card and use it, she put on the back, request ID. And again, you can have a driver's license where it shows your name and then the other information is not illuminated unless touched. There's a button that can illuminate it. Driver's licenses can be battery operated. So it shows the minimal information verifies who you are until you need to verify more detailed information. So keeping your residency private, but still confirming your name and your facial demographics. So we need to move to smart IDs so it doesn't give away your driver's license number, your date of birth, your address, unless they need that particular information. So again, we have to get the smart IDs, and you can press on something and disclose only that information. Like if you're going to a bar, they need your name and date of birth. I don't need your address or anything else. I don't need your driver's license number. And the swipe system, now they can use at a bar. And with a camera integration, now they just take your ID and they swipe it and give it back to you. And the camera goes into the DMV, the Illinois Department of Motor Vehicles, and they do state IDs and they do driver's licenses, and they need to also integrate with passports and green cards. Truly, integrate with passports and green cards. And then you can take it to college campuses for college ID and workplace verification as well. Separate systems, but this would be you're going out to a club and they just swipe the ID. They don't have to look at anything on it. They swipe it and it says ID is valid, and then it pulls the picture and image from the DMV, and the camera matches you to the image, and it tells the doorman approved or denied. So again, for Sharia, they'll have to take it off for the camera, and then they can put it right back on. And that's fine. They're not violating. It's for security purposes. As Sam said, there's exceptions within the law. For medical, if you have breathing or other things, you don't have to wear the facial. It is not rigid that you have to wear it no matter what. It allows for medical exceptions. So, like Sam said, he's a Muslim, and he said, you don't have to get down on your knees and pray if you have a disability. And so if you can't get down and you have back trouble or something else, then you don't have to get down. You can stand up and pray. So it's adaptable if you have truly difficulties or you need to recognize somebody for security, then they can take it off and you can recognize them and they can put it back on. So it is built into it. It does have these exceptions. Like if your baby's born or something, having a baby and you're going to the hospital, you don't have to. Or you're running late for an appointment, you don't have to stop and pray. It's not supposed to, it's something you're not doing intentionally to skip prayer. It's just that the timing, traffic, or something else happened. You had to help out with the baby in the morning, so you're running late, and you can't do your morning prayer. That's fine. You just find a makeup point. Or you just do a little longer prayer at your evening session. So it's very flexible. So understand it's not rigid. So you have to understand this when you get deeper into it. And I told you there's the letter of the law and then the spirit of the law. And that's what the New Testament brought, the deeper understanding when to apply and when you don't have to apply it, when there's an exception to the rule. And so you have all these mitigating circumstances, and once you understand the rule, then you can get into the mitigation. And this is how we do sentencing. It's the same thing. That's why you have sentencing guidelines, but sometimes you can sentence even harder. Sometimes they put caps on so they don't, but other times judges do have discretion. They can make it extremely light, time served, or truly. And it could be that you just showed up for court and that was good enough. And then they just do it as time served. You came into court, you spent an hour in court, that's good enough for the judge. So, again, they allow these things. And so you have to understand, and I used to talk to Sam about this, and we go back and forth between Christianity and the Muslim religion, and we talk about what is more hard and fast and what allows for more, fluctuation. But doing things intentionally evil, there's no exception. Temporary getting mad at somebody, you don't intend to get mad. If you do, that's inciting it yourself. There's no exception. So doing intentional sin, and Sam said, it's not allowed. Accidental sin, and I pointed out with many verses in the Bible, accidental sin, but what that guy did to me in a car, that's blasphemy, and in Saudi Arabia, you would be put to death. That's intentional sin. That's intentional desecration. That's the fucking death penalty. So it's a big difference. We allow accidental, like you're in the insurance policy allows for accidents in that. things that you didn't foresee. Yeah, you could have done it better. Hindsight's 20/20, and you could have not been listening to the music or doing that, and you got distracted. But you didn't intentionally set it up where you got distracted on purpose to hit somebody and hurt somebody and use it as an excuse to get away with a crime. So that's totally different. And so, again, you have to understand, it's not good with intentional sin. That's a big difference. Accidents can be forgiven. Intentional sin, like going out and being a murderer, you can't do that. It's like American Sniper. Does he go out to kill people? No, he doesn't. He goes out to protect his troops as they're on the mission, and these people need to comply, and they're doing illegal stuff, and they are doing illegal things. You put a gate. Okay. They're doing illegal things, and he has to do it. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't go out, I'm going to... His 160 kills, he never went out and say, I'm going to do this. Now, he wanted to catch the one sniper, but truly, he's not going out and saying, I'm going to kill people. He's going out to do his job, and if his job calls him to eliminate people, then he eliminates them. But it's not the mission in that way. Sometimes the mission, truly, that's why they say capture or kill. So you have to understand. So we're down here in Museum Park. You know, there can be a great collaboration between all of these. The Shedd Aquarium with the planetarium, with the Field Museum, with the Museum of Science and Industry, they can actually collaborate. They can help each other out. Eventually, we're going to raise agriculture off-world, and some of that agriculture might be fish. And that fish might be just because we want a pet. One of the easiest things is to carry a pet in space is have a pet goldfish or something. Truly, giving a little bit of home, right? So again, there can be this great collaboration between them, making the world a better place. And it, as I said, it would be the first in the world collaborating on marine biology, ice, off planet. Chicago would develop it and be the only program initially in the world, and would be on the cutting edge of doing marine biology, because there's oceans on ice moons, and they believe the water is not solid, and that the surface it's solid, but underneath it's liquid. So, again, it would be the first program in the world. And so Chicago Bears leaving could be the greatest blessing that's ever happened to this area. And converting Soldier Field into this collaborative hub for business, education, private, public ventures, and everything. and being also a space for an extension, extra space for the Mercantile Exchange, not the Mercantile, McCormick Center for extra convention space. So again, it could be the greatest thing to just let the Bears go. The Park District still owns the land in that, and they get all the leasing money. So it would pump way more than the Chicago Bears pump in, or some concerts pump in. These are permanent industries that are highly innovative, high-tech, and they would be paying a premium for the space, and it would be pumping in. Initially, no. Just like when we were at the opening of North Pier, we got 1 year free as the anchor tenant. When we were at Charlie's, when Navy Pier launched, we didn't have to pay rent for, I forget how many months after the launch, because it was incentivizing businesses to come in, and they were waived rent for a period of time. So they can do it the same thing here, and it would kick in after a period, say 1 year or whatever. They would have waiver of rent. And then after a year, it gets them to get established, get everything going. After a year, then you would have a tier rent schedule based on profitability. And as they become more profitable, they pay more rent. And it could be a fixed 5%. And it could have a cap. So, again, Baja Beach Club, when we were there, the anchor tenant at North Pier, our rent was $1 million a year. That was for a nightclub. We paid $1 million a year in rent. That's in 1990. $1 million a year in rent for a nightclub. In 1990. $1 million a year. So that's a pretty good tenant. Think of how many millions it would be today with inflation 35 years later. What would it be? So, again, it would be several $1 million in rent per year. So, Soldier Field would generate more property tax, meaning through the rent, the Park District would take in all that money. It would generate a fortune for the city, way more than the Chicago Bears do. So it would be a bonanza in revenue. Unbelievable, unprecedented revenue. And what would that mitigate? Property taxes and everything. That would help mitigate property tax. So you need hubs like this that are significant to mitigate property tax for residents. So again, it's a balance between residents and commercial. And having big concentrated hubs like that would soften the property tax hit. Caterpillar, John Deere, Boeing, they would all be, there, plus all the different Illinois Institute of Technology, University of Chicago, Northwestern, and many other, UIC, and many other institutions. And businesses, Google, you name it, would have centers there. So it would generate a fortune in revenue, way beyond. And the build out, what I proposed was a $2 billion renovation. not the 500 million or 680 to do it. It would end up being a $2 billion renovation of Soldier Field. An incredibly extensive renovation, because you have to reinforce the subterranean tunnels and many other aspects of it. And so it would be a $2 billion infrastructure renovation. But you line up all the industries, everything beforehand, so you know who's coming. And it creates this great collaborative environment that would spawn off throughout Chicago, throughout the state, throughout the Midwest, integrating with the quantum computing and everything else that's going on. And yes, it can have all kinds of products that it makes for space in general. So truly, talking about silicon wafers and graphic chips and that work in space, where you have solar flares and many other types of radiation and other exposures that you don't have on Earth because of the atmosphere. So you would get NVIDIA, Samsung, and many other industries in there as well. And it would be building out this industry for the deep sea and for space. And so it would be an incredible collaboration that would be unprecedented. And that would pour so much high tech, even Blue Cross Blue Shield and others, because all that off-world medical care, because wound healing and all that changes because of the exposures. So Blue Cross Blue Shield has to see what a hospital, what doctors are going to do off-world, how to use robotics or whatever, and that can be all part of that center. It can be unbelievably gangbusters, and it builds out all the university and educational systems. So you would have to get better preschools, elementary schools, high schools. You have to have the core feeding from the domestic population in-state, and then you have the hub feeding people in from other states. And I built this out long ago, 2 decades ago actually, trying to build out the educational systems here. Because for these industries to be cutting edge, the majority of people have to come from within. So you have to breed incredible individuals. And then you would you would add in people from other places. You would recruit in amazing people. And that's what Boeing gave us. Boeing gave us all their executives. They kept all their manufacturing in Seattle. We got all their executives. We got the people making high 6 figures, 7-figure incomes. That was huge. Those people, that pumped unbelievable amount of money into Chicago, because we got their whole executive team here, from their CEO to their top management. And so that pumped in high-end salaries into Chicago. So these industries you're talking about, even the baseline employees would be making a lot of money. So again, I put out we have the material right by us. Some of it not as good, it needs to be purified, but also we have deposits of the most pure material to go into silicon chips and everything as well. So we have the water, we have everything. So again, it all fits in. And it's really, this is why you can't have the black community of the old. Truly, you can have that type of stuff on a movie studio, but that's it. They either got to get highly educated to be able to support, or they can't be. So that thing of the past in these communities, like the Latino community and black communities and that can't be anymore. They either have to get with the program or they become a great detriment. And we have an incredible labor shortage, and then we have to immigrate massively from the outside. So you have to build the core internally, and you have to have revolution and evolution in the citizen population. You can't sell out to law enforcement, meaning, oh, they need... No. All of this needs lots of very good workers. And so something has to give. And what's going to give is that the people here are highly productive and keep their nose clean and support the industries. And so it's a totally different thing. No more of the past where you can just throw people away in large quantities. You can't have that anymore. So, again, we need it, or you're going to have to lock all them up and then bring in people from the outside. And so if you want to give away all that wealth, and they want to give, all these communities want to give away all that wealth to the outsiders, well, then that's fine. Then they can do that. And they'll end up in the jails, and we'll replace them in civilization outside the jails. So eventually the black and Latino and all them, all the nasty white people and all, will end up in the jails, and we'll replace them with immigration. It's domestic immigration, but it's still immigration. And so either we have to have them focused on doing the right thing, and this is where the institutions in that have to nip it in the bud and set more of a zero tolerance policy so they don't make the big mistakes. So they get little slaps on the hand, like me and Bill Foss used to say. We just want to take a screwdriver and tweak it a little bit. And that's what nipping in the bud. So the big things never happen, and you nip it in the bud and you penalize them, and the police are still there to penalize them, but it's more slaps on the hand than something significant. And it's a little course correction and a learning experience that doesn't destroy them. It isn't the end of their life. So you're looking at moving into a whole different type of society statewide than before. Agriculture and that is getting so highly productive, vertical farming, all this stuff. They can't have the agricultural workers of the past. They need to understand all this to minimize their risk and everything else to them as well. A lot of farm injuries and all that, and agriculture, deaths, like when I was at Benedictine College, I was around all these farmers. And they would tell me of these incidents. People losing fingers, losing hands, losing arms and legs in farming accidents, and also getting buried in the silo. People, as they're filling the silo, would fall in, and the grain would bury them. And by the time they dug them out, they were long dead. So it was amazing to me, all these incidents. And that stuff doesn't show up, but farming can be highly deadly. And it's getting that way with bigger combines and all this. And these people have to be much more educated. We can't have the migrant worker of the past, where any Joe can go on the farm and pick. There's all kinds of pesticides, there's all kinds of E. coli and other possibilities from organic farming. And they have to understand these things and do the right things, the right ways of doing things to protect themselves, to protect the farms from liability, and so on. So we can't do things like we've done in the past. So it's a totally different base that we need than in the past. I'm sorry, but no more stupid. And we can't have people like my sister dropping out of high school. And my brother Richard, I guess he didn't finish either. I thought he did. But we can't have people playing hooky anymore. And they all have to go to school. It's a way to see what's going on in their life, to make sure they're developing correctly. And they need, with the guidance counselor, they need to give them testing. Not in the way you're thinking. I'm talking about tests that see how they're getting along in school. That a question, they sit down and they answer 20 questions. And in those questions, it gives them a survey of how they're fitting in at the school and how things are going for them at home and outside. But you have to develop the psychological tests with psychologists and sociologists to ask the right question. So they come in and they complete it, and it gives them an idea generally of how things are going on at school and outside of school and at home. So this is what I was trying to teach Jen, and I told her, you have to be intuitive. They can't say it to you, or might not want to say it to you for many reasons. So you don't beat it out of them, you finesse it. And it's not to destroy them or undermine them, it's to help them and correct them and not have them have to lose face. So a lot of times people will take things and not say things, like Baby It. His mother was torturing him, all those. He went through elementary school and high school with his mother systematically torturing him. No DCFS or anything else. So again, they have to derive these things to gather the information indirectly. And I was trying to teach Jen this, how to be able to interpret things without them being said. So being there and being able to communicate silently to each other. really deeply bonding and deeply understanding each other. But the whole point is we have to do this and help people be able to communicate things they otherwise wouldn't communicate. And it's helping to steer them to figure out how to correct actions to move them in the right direction. So we have to be a smarter society, knowing certain things like domestic abuse and so on. Those things are very hard to put forward. And so we have to design things to be able to detect those so we can help them indirectly, just steer them with some subtle course corrections like Adam Smith, the invisible hand. So you're helping them and you're steering them, but they don't actually see it. It's subtle, and it's not to do anything but put them in a better place. And you'll know how it's going by the feedback. But we have to be more intuitive about things. So understanding these things, being smarter. And so, again, they have to have better guidance counselors, and every school has to have psychologists and sociologists. And they have to put together these things and interpret these things and give guidance. So even from the psychologists, understanding the different ways that people learn. And then the sociologists is how they communicate within a group. So when people are signing up for, different programs and that, that they fit together. Like I went to our pastors at NCPC and they were gathered together. And I said, you're here in a group, you're standing talking to each other. And I said, why aren't you moving around? And I said, you see all these cliques here? Everybody's replicating what you're doing. They're not moving between each other. They're siloing as you silo. And I said, why are you not interacting with them? And they said, well, and this is Pastor Brad, and this is David Rim, and well, I'm an introvert. I can do things on stage, but when I get off the stage, I feel very awkward interacting with people. And so we talk to each other and hang out at these fellowships because we feel comfortable with each other. And I told them, well, you're going to have to figure out how to bridge the gap, and you need to get help. Because you're going to have to go out there and shake hands and meet people and talk to them. And you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. And so you're going to have to get help. You're going to have to get counseling to make you more sociable, less introverted, more extroverted. So you can get these people to loosen up and move around and feel more comfortable interacting with each other. As you silo, they silo. And so I was talking to them. This is early 2011 or 12. That these pieces of garbage that are speeding around need to be eliminated. They're a threat to themselves, and they're a threat to everybody else around them. So why are they allowed to do it? In psychology, those people would be put in a mental health institution. They're a threat to themselves, and they're a threat to other people around them. the tailgaters. So make no mistake about it, they meet the qualifications and they could be ordered to do outpatient counseling because they're a threat to themselves and they're a threat to everybody around them. And so they can be forced to do outpatient counseling. Mandatory. They meet the criteria. And they literally could be institutionalized. So, tailgaters can be forced to go to counseling. And if they get another tailgating ticket within a certain period of time, they could be forced to do a weekend at a mental health facility for a full assessment. So initially outpatient, then a weekend, and if they do it again, then a week, and if they violate it, again, 6 months. The next time, a year. But these people are a risk to themselves and a risk to everybody around them. And they meet the definition. I know for a fact. So, literally, they could be locked up, but you start with the outpatient. Giving them a chance to correct their evil ways. So again, we need to re-educate and retrain. You can't do these things. Here we're at Loyola and they're expanding. Here comes the ambulance. Where some guy, I'm up here videotaping, and some guy threatens to shoot me. He comes up behind me on this street and he threatens to shoot me. What do you mean? You come up flying behind me, I'm on a side street, and you're going to shoot me because I'm going too slow, you say? I mean, it's a freaking joke. And I'm sick and tired of black people, and I am, them and Latinos getting a pass. That it's slavery. They're, disgruntled and it's discrimination. I'm sick of it. Because white people don't get that. White people don't get the get out of jail card. Here's the beach. Yeah, the oxygen getting pushed into the water as it rolls over. It's oxygenating. You know that? Just to let you know, as the waves roll in and they crest, they wrap the atmosphere under it. And so they're capturing carbon, CO2, and whatever other gases plus oxygen, and they're bringing it to the bottom. And when it rolls back out, it rolls out as an undertow. And so this is how it captures. Where in the oceans, you have rolling waves, and it doesn't capture as much. The shorelines capture a lot more CO2 and oxygen, atmospheric gases, as they crest and roll over, they're taking all that in with them and then bringing it to the bottom. And as it goes back out, it goes out as an undertow. So it's this capturing system. But people say, oh, there's the wave. Well, it's actually capturing atmosphere. And it's taking in oxygen out of the air, but it's also, what? Removing carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and whatever atmospheric gases are there at the ground level. And so it's important for us to have that current. It's part of the cleansing cycle. Do you know that? Yeah, Bop and Grill. This is my friend's place, Will, right here. He's a Korean guy. He opened Bop and Grill. His business was awesome here at Loyola. And I helped him solve a problem with one of his managers who was defrauding him, stealing from him. But again, this university needs to move up the food chain, building a better Loyola. Yep, building a better Loyola. This university needs to move up the food chain. They need to do, like the University of Arizona, it was constantly focused on climbing the rankings. Truly, every year they would want to move up at least one notch if they could, if multiple, but never falling back. And constantly, consistently, the programs, like our MIS program, our graduate program, was #1 in the United States for Management Information System. They were constantly climbing the ladder towards the top. That's what they said. And yes, it gets harder and harder as more schools focus on excellence, but it also makes the system incredible. So Loyola doing a lot of expansion. My friend Steve went to Loyola as an undergraduate. My friend T-Bone, he went undergraduate. We used to hang out here because Steve and T-Bone went to Loyola and they formed a fraternity. Yes, they started a fraternity. It wasn't here at Loyola, and I forgot what chapter of what fraternity they started here. T-Bone is an Indian. He was born here. His family came from India, but he was part of the fraternity here. Steve, I think, met him. He might have went to high school with him too. But they formed a fraternity here at Loyola. And I forget what it is, but Steve was the founding members. My other friends, Nikki Merringer and that, formed Kappa Kappa Gamma. No, Kappa Kappa Kappa. No, is it Gamma Gamma Gamma? No, Delta 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 Delta. Tri-Delts. That's what they formed at the University of Arizona. And you heard it on, they used to have it on Saturday Night Live. Delta Delta Delta, maybe help you, help you, help you. But again, I'm right here on the beach. But again, my friend Nikki Merringer and that, they formed the Tri-Delts, which the University of Arizona has a substantial Greek system, but still they didn't have a Tri-Delt chapter. And so they opened up a Tri-Delt chapter at the University of Arizona. These girls I know. And Nikki Merringer is an LA cop. Her brother went to the University of Arizona. Randy Merringer, he became a Los Angeles police officer as well. So brother and sister both became Los Angeles police officers. So, again, good people. And I consider them good friends of mine. But, again, I would assume building a better Loyola is not the infrastructure only, but building the minds. St. Joseph Hall. St. Joseph is a saint who is the worker. St. Joseph's the worker. Like in Wheeling, they have St. Joe's, and they have St. Joe's in Chicago. But St. Joseph is the worker, the patron saint of getting it done. The four-letter word, work. It's a beautiful word. W-O-R-K. Work. And so I would assume they're building this out, but they have to build out a campus life. And that means you have to build out recreational. Like I said, by DePaul, a Dave & Buster's, even up here a Chuck and Cheese kind of thing would go well. More of an adult version. But again, you got to figure out how you can build out that atmosphere. Like in Benedictine, every weekend I used to go shoot pool. So when everybody was out drinking, and I have a beer, and basically one beer, but I would spend a lot of money shooting pool. And the people I played were all the townies. So I played a black guy. He was awesome. We became good friends. But also, I played the Native American guy. And he was a bad drunk. But he used to play pool as well. And so it was me and all the townies and all the other people from my college. They were more focused on just drinking, hanging out, drinking, and socializing. I was focused on playing good games of pool. But here, what are they doing to build out the campus life? Truly, the environment around the university matters. The University of Arizona did studies on it, and this was through the Board of Regents, and they did studies at the University of Arizona, ASU, and Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, which all three universities are growing rapidly. And three of them are excellent. Truly, they are growing rapidly. They are top-notch in fields. They're going about their growth a little bit differently. Flagstaff and University of Arizona are focused mainly on growing their campus population, their undergraduate and graduate on campus. ASU is blending online and creating a global campus, much more so than the University of Arizona and Flagstaff. And Flagstaff has one of the greatest physical training programs in the United States. And then if it's good in the United States, it's one of the best in the world for physical therapy and that. My friend Susan got into the program, and my friend Jerry was looking to get into the program. His father was a chiropractor, and he studied exercise sports science at the University of Arizona and decided not to go into his father's practice. He went into modeling and, basically into modeling. So, again, but he developed exercise sports science, and that allowed them to actually have the figure, because when he came to me, he's 6'something, he's 6 foot, I think, maybe 6'1", and he was just over 200 pounds, and he was shredded. And they said, we want you to be 160 pounds. pounds at 6'1". You got to lose 40 pounds, mainly of muscle. But he graduated in exercise sports science, so he could do it without hurting his health. He did. He lost the weight. He did it over a period of time, but he could do it in a proper manner that didn't negatively affect him. So he could get that lean body they wanted in a proper way. But you need those type of people to be in modeling. The people that are exercise, physical people and dietitians, so they can do things the right way where they don't sacrifice their life and lose it incorrectly, which they do in modeling and everything else. Well, he didn't. He stayed ultra healthy. And he reconfigured his body in the way they needed. And he ended up on, Fruit of the Loom underwear commercials and many other, packages, I should say. But again, what are they doing with Uptown? And a big part of Uptown is Loyola University. And so how are they creating the campus life? And what is the mayor doing to make it happen? And it brings strength to this whole community. And it's right off the lakefront. So it's a beautiful place to be. If they clean up Rogers Park and really make it a vibrant community, it will drive Loyola. But the problem with Loyola is that its medical is in Maywood. They're unbelievable distance. So you need the RTA that goes through, connecting from here, that goes straight to Maywood. So the Chicago Public Transportation has to accommodate the university, and you can't switch 20 trains to get to Maywood. So they got to keep it simple. Changing at one station is reasonable, 2 at the most, but you have to make it highly efficient to get to Maywood, from Maywood to Rogers Park to Maywood. It is critical, and they can use the RTA as the logistical center to move students to that campus, and from that campus, connecting them. It's just like Northwestern, and you have the Skokie Swift, but that's a little bit further away from Northwestern's campus. And you have to understand, Northwestern has to get connected to its downtown campus. And it's the same thing with the Gleacher Center and DePaul University. So they have these extensions. Loyola, its law school, is downtown in Chicago. So you have its medical school all the way in Maywood, its law school downtown Chicago, and its main campus in Rogers Park. And so it's spread all over the place, and there's no logistical plan for the university to integrate either the CTA and the RTA, or the CTA being, like from Northwestern, a PACE bus that goes from Northwestern down to their campus in Chicago, and a CTA bus that goes outbound. So one way or another, they have to merge PACE CTA. So the bus could be a PACE CTA bus. Truly a joint venture. And it goes from Northwestern down to its campus in Chicago, which I'm going down. But the thing is, it has to go down Sheridan Road And that's really tight. So what do you have to do on Sheridan Road? You got to get people to stop parking on the street, on both sides of the street, so you can expand Sheridan Road. So you can't have people park on the street. So that means you have to work with the residents to figure out how you can shift parking to the side streets, or have people build garages like that are 2-story garages, or have a car rack like my friend did in his lot in Jen's building. I'll give you an example, and it wasn't in another, but because, you know, the ceilings are 10 feet and the car, you know, is less than 5 feet high, he had a rack he put in, and he could fit 2 cars in one spot. And so the one car left in the morning first, him or the wife, and then they would pull out, and then the rack would lower and they would pull in, and whoever comes in first puts their car on top, and it's like having bunk beds. But the building has to accommodate the weight. So the building has to be able to hold 2 cars. You have to reinforce the structure to make sure the structure can hold that for every spot. But every one of these buildings, if there's enough ceiling height, can literally accommodate 2 vehicles instead of 1. So right away, say you have, like in Jen's building, you have 100 parking spots. All of a sudden, now you have 200 parking spots, because the building would do it for every spot. So Jen could only have 1 parking spot for her 1 bedroom. Now you have a husband and wife living there, a boyfriend and girlfriend. Now every spot has 2 parking spots. And it gets the cars, all these cars that are on the street would disappear into the buildings. And you would free up roadway for bike lanes and car, truly. And so think about that. If you mandated this and the city funded it, and they did went and did the engineering surveys and then did the reinforcements, you could get tons of cars off, and you can use this in parking garages. Truly, in parking garages, but those would only be for long-term individuals. And yes, there could be an emergency where they need to get their car and their car's on top. And so there has to be some type of temporary key that's electronic that you can grant it to the valet that works in the parking garage, the guy who runs it. It's a temporary key that you can, like in the Rookie, I'll just air tap you. They can send you, and it's a one-term use. The key can start the car, you can back it out, pull it in, and then it terminates the key. It's an electronic key you can give them for a single use. And so this at the parking garages, and they can create an app for it from standard parking, like my friends used to do. They used to write all the rules and everything for standard parking in Chicago. But now they can turn all their garages and can increase capacity by 100%. 100%. If they did the app and the virtual key, but then you would have to trust the people, and the phone would have to have a camera on them, and it'd have to have some type of monitoring system, shape recognition and everything else, monitoring what they're doing inside the car. So the app would have to have a security feature built into it. but you can give them a one-time pass to move the car. So think of how many cars you can take off the street in the city of Chicago. And that's what I mean about Sheridan Road. Being able to work with the tenants in that and reconfigure the garages and get the cars off the road and open up the street. And then you can have the buses moving back and forth from Northwestern and Loyola, the CTA buses, because not too far away from, and I'll go by both campuses, the Loyola Law School that's downtown, their graduate campus downtown, and then the Northwestern campus, which is its graduate schools, and which includes its medical schools and its hospital. And yes, it's law school, but also MBA program. And then you have to set up, using Lakeshore Drive, a bus system that goes from Hyde Park to the Gleacher Center, and from the Gleacher Center back to Hyde Park using Lakeshore Drive. And so you have these rapid buses. They only pick up and drop off. They pick up at Hyde Park. They take you to the Gleacher Center, drop off at the Gleacher Center, take you from the Gleacher Center to Hyde Park. That's all they do. They don't stop anywhere in between. They're express buses, just like the ones picks you up at the Northwestern campus and can pick up people from Northwestern, and as it's going down, it stops at Loyola, picks up people at Loyola, and it has a set time that it's going to be in the station, and maybe it's a 10-minute turnaround, and people can go from Northwestern to Loyola, but also they can take them both downtown. So they pick up at Northwestern, then they pick up at Loyola, then they drop off at Northwestern first, then they drop off at Loyola second, they pick up at Loyola when they drop off, and then they go back to Northwestern, and then they head back down Lakeshore Drive to Loyola. They drop off at Loyola first, and then they pick up anyone. If they want, they can take the ride to Northwestern or wait for it to come back, because it's going to come back and stop, so they don't have to get on and ride up to Northwestern and come back down. So I'll get off here at Michigan Avenue. This is not where I would get off standard if I was going to Northwestern. But the whole point is they can just wait for the bus to come back, because it's going to pick up at drop off at Northwestern, pick up, then come back to Loyola. They hop on the bus, but they're free to take the ride up unless the bus is, packed. But that can be all done through a booking app, CTA, RTA booking app that works with Northwestern University and Loyola University, and then the reverse, Hyde Park. So UIC doesn't have this, but DePaul has a problem, and they need the same thing up Fullerton from DePaul main campus. The bus, this is a dedicated bus from Fullerton. It picks up at DePaul's main campus, goes up Fullerton to Lakeshore Drive, shoots down Lakeshore Drive, and it would go all the way down and drop you off at DePaul's graduate adult learning campus downtown here in Chicago. And then it would swing by Wintrust and drop people off at Wintrust, and then pick up from Wintrust, go back to DePaul's downtown campus, and then from the downtown campus back up Lakeshore Drive to Fullerton, and then from Fullerton to the main campus. And that's a CTA dedicated bus line only for DePaul University. The other one's only for University of Chicago. The other one is for Loyola and Northwestern, would be joint. But the RTA would connect the Maywood campus to the main campus. So if you're going to Maywood, you take the RTA, not the PACE/CTA bus. So now it can connect its satellites and make it feel like one campus, because you're up there, you get on the bus, and you get back off at the downtown campus. So it's all interconnected. And that would further expand the university and make it feel more like one campus, bridging the gap. So again, I'm going to go over here off of Chicago Avenue. And here's Robert Ann Laurie's Children's Hospital, but the American Dental Association's here. You can have pediatric dentistry right here at Laurie's. So Stanley Mann Children's Research Institute. And this has a collaboration with Northwestern, but Northwestern now can raise pediatric doctors. Northwestern can have a whole program of pediatric doctors, residents that work at Children's Hospital through its joint venture with the Feinberg School of Medicine. And so you can go to medical school at Northwestern for pediatric, all the types of different pediatrics. Northwestern, my friend Brian graduated from Northwestern Dentistry. And another girl, I forget her name, but they have a dental school at Northwestern, and they can do pediatric dentistry partnering up with Laurie's. So again, expanding their pediatric dentistry program. So here's Northwestern. Let's see if we can see it right here. You get all the glare. But anyways, it's just talking about its campus. And the Shirley Ann Ability Lab, again, can work in, because that's all the prosthetic and rehabilitation research, and that would go for children and adults and blend into Northwestern. So again, this is not for people that have tuberculosis. This is for people that have limb issues, mobility issues, not disease issues. And disease can cause mobility problems, but again, they tend to be separate, but sometimes one causes another. But again, they can work together as one collaborative. And so, again, here's the University of Chicago I'm going to go up to, and that would take from the Gleacher Center right up to Lakeshore Drive and right to Hyde Park, getting off at Hyde Park and dropping you off at the University of Chicago, and then back down here, back to the Gleacher Center. So you're connecting, and it goes from the University of Chicago, the main campus, to the medical campus, which is up there. Northwestern has its law campus and graduate campus down here too. But you're really building this out, and that will feed into building out Soldier Field. And that will propel all the industries here and propel the state. And yes, the energy industry and everything else. So it all interacts, because helium-3 is abundant on the moon. And the moon becomes a refilling station, and you can build out the helium-3 engines and infrastructure, processing, mining with Caterpillar and so on. All of that here. So it can move into a whole new evolution. So again, you can build it out. All you have to do is get rid of the shit bags. Because there is nowhere I know where they have the campus like the University of Arizona and their student health, their medical center and research center. Crimes never happen. Truly. On-campus crime is literally there, non-existent. The university police do a very good job, and they do have dogs and everything else. The campus is incredibly safe. I've never heard of anyone getting robbed or anything else on campus. And so the University of Chicago can have its own police force. Northwestern have its own police force trained by the city of Chicago, but dedicated to the university. The university pays for them, not the city of Chicago. Just like Tucson, the police force is trained, they go through the academy and everything else, but they become university police officers, and the university pays the salary, not the city. It's just like the RTA police force. The city doesn't pay for it, the RTA pays for it. They're still Chicago trained, they go through the police academy and everything else, but there's a dedicated additional training to get them for the RTA or for the University of Chicago, Northwestern, UIC, and so on, Loyola University. And so the city doesn't pay for those officers. The universities pay for those officers. The CTA pays for those officers. The RTA pays for those officers. Only the general policing do the citizens pay for. But with UIC and all that, it creates great coverage in the city with the university police forces. So, again, this is the University of Chicago Gleacher Center. But it takes it off of the tax base of the city. The universities pay for it, like at the University of Arizona. They pay for their police force. And things don't happen on campus. And it is true. All those years that I spent there, nothing happened on campus. There was no shootings, no muggings, or anything that I know of. And we had police beat where people got pulled over or arrested for drunken, disorderly, and other things. But they did a good job. And I knew a lot of those police officers. And my friend Johnny, he was a black guy that I used to work out with Bear Down. He graduated from the University of Arizona. He became a Tucson police officer, not a university, but a Tucson general. But my friend Brian Gorman, now he quit because of an incident where he had to take care of a corpse, and he didn't become a cop to take care of dead bodies. So he couldn't deal with that, so he quit. But he graduated at the University of Arizona. He became a Tucson police officer. They went to U of A, and they graduated, and they became Tucson police officers. All university trained. So, again, that takes a lot of burden off the city, and the universities take up a lot of space, and they can pull people over on the street. You speed around campus, you get pulled over by a university police officer. If you speed on Speedway or Park or anything else, you're going to get busted by a university police officer. So they pull over non-university, non-students on the area around campus. So they police those streets and they pull people over. And it's a different police car. It says the University of Arizona Police on it. But you'll get rollers on Speedway if you're speeding and get pulled over and get a ticket from the University Police. You'll have to go to court, the general court and everything. But still, they give tickets. They're Tucson police officers, dedicated to the university, but still Tucson police officers. So it takes a lot of burden off of the city for the police force, and that should lower taxes. Instead, the city pays too much for policing, and the universities don't pay enough. So that will make life more affordable in Chicago. Help bring down the demand on the tax base. So again, these are things that can be implemented and done and make the city safer. Because the only way any of this works if the city becomes incredibly safe. So the way of the bum can't be. And it's bums away. So you're moving into a whole new revolution, and the things of the past can't be anymore. So you have to have a zero tolerance for fucking shitbags. So people like going out and people working like Jen. She liked to go out and have a good time, but go out and be unsafe or have something happen. Screw that. Those economies where you have that, that's why downtown Los Angeles was a shithole. And what did they do? They started serious law enforcement and cleaning things up. And all of a sudden, downtown Los Angeles was getting more beautiful because they got rid of the bums. They got rid of the crime. They started cleaning up the sidewalks, truly, and everything. So the city goes the way it allows. Like Detroit became a shithole and Devil's Night, so they started burning down the buildings and everything. They allowed the crime to come in and the urban decay to happen, and you reap what you sow. So you get rid of the fucking bums, you get rid of the fucking filth, and you have a zero tolerance, and you break them. What do you think Mayor Daley did, and I did agree with, moving Pacific Gardens, getting it off estate? He built the Jones Academy, a very good high school. I think it's a high school. And we used to do church in the Jones Academy. Now the People's Church is there. And I used to go to on Sunday. But much better than a shelter on State Street in the middle of high-end housing. Just like on Diversity and Clark, the residents had them pull the Panera Care. Because bums from all over were flocking into their neighborhood. And it was destroying. It's like the Salvation Army on Clark. They don't fit into the neighborhood. It's not a good fit. So, again, these things need to be appropriate. What was can't be anymore. They have to be able to move and reallocate and go where they're needed, and they can rent out that property and make a ton of money. Like Pacific Gardens could have just leased that land if they owned it, and they would get a lot of money to further it to move into another area where they're truly needed, helping to bring in, restore, revitalize that neighborhood. So those programs have to be fungible. They can't have a permanent place. And the funny thing is, the charity can get richer as it goes in and revitalizes neighborhoods. Those property values go up. They move to a new location and they lease out that property for some other type of enterprise. And this is what the Pacific Gardens, and they have to decide, and I'm going to go by it now, but if the 78's coming in, they're going to have a come to Jesus moment. Does it further theirs and they can move Pacific Gardens down south and move out of that location and move something else into that location that can bring them a ton of revenue to further their mission, instead of keeping it there and paying higher and higher property taxes, because even nonprofits have to pay property taxes. They would have somebody come in, take the burden off of them, and they end up generating money that further makes their organization stronger. And there's lots of work around the United States, even in small towns they can go to, helping to restore communities. And when they do, they reap the benefits of the resurrection. They reap the benefits of the resurrection. They reap the benefits of the good work. The organization becomes more and more financially sound, and they can take care of the people that work for them and provide the resources. And this way, they can compete for talent. And they have to compete for talent. And so, again, their life shouldn't be shit. You do the good works, you should live a good life. So, every other industry, you do the good works at Google, you live a very good life. So, they have to get on the same plan. You do the good works, and you end up with a good life for doing the good works. So I agree with that. But like I said, the pastor goes the way of the congregation. And as the pastor revitalizes and rejuvenates the congregation, the pastor's salary goes up. Truly, as he proves he can do the good works, he gets rewarded for the good works. And if the congregation goes south, he gets punished. So the pastor has to be guiding the congregation and living within the lifestyle of the congregation. What happens in black churches, the one pastor bought a G6 and he crashed it, and he lived way above the congregation, and it wasn't him getting the congregation higher in lifestyle. He was milking the congregation. He was the only one living the higher lifestyle. So it was misrepresentative. The pastor gets rewarded by taking care of the sheep and guiding them to a better life. And so I'm down here by the 78. And again, I don't know, is Loyola, Northwestern, University of Chicago, IIT, North Park University, I don't know, Northeast University, is it? And others, do they have sports programs, sports management, coaching, many other tracks related to sports, software development for stadium, software management for stadium, and many other things? Truly, vendor management, hospitality management for stadiums in particular. What universities? You know, University of Nevada, the reason the industry is so good out there because University of Nevada is one of the best hospitality schools in the world. So they produce incredible, highly educated, sophisticated students that feed into the casinos and hospitality industry in Vegas. So it feeds them of a pipeline of incredibly high quality individuals. So UNLV is one of the best at what they do related to the service industry. And Vegas benefits substantially from having a pipeline of highly qualified individuals. It keeps Vegas very strong, having strong academics that feed into the hospitality industry, that feed into the hospitality casino industry.